They thought exile would break us. The decree came from the Galactic Assembly in a voice as cold as vacuum. Humanity was to be banished beyond the outer rim, stripped of trade, stripped of allies, stripped of relevance. Our worlds were marked, our jump lanes revoked, our ambassadors escorted out under armed guard. To them, it was a solution. To us, it was a test. We did not protest. That was the first thing that unsettled them. No fleets mobilized in anger. No last-minute pleas. No desperate negotiations. Humanity accepted the sentence with a silence so complete it echoed across the stars. And then quietly, we began to leave. Colony by colony, station by station, humanity withdrew. Not in panic, but with precision. Entire star systems went dark as our ships vanished beyond the mapped edges of the galaxy. We dismantled what we could not take. We erased what we did. Not want followed. The galaxy watched, amused at first. Let them go, they said. They will crawl back within a century. They did not understand what humanity had truly been building. Beyond the rim, in the vast uncharted void where even ancient probes had failed, we found something better than survival. We found freedom. No oversight, no politics, no ancient empires dictating our place. Just endless dark and endless possibility. And so we built. Not planets, not empires. We built gates. Massive constructs forged in silence, orbiting dead stars and hidden in gravitational shadows. Gates that bent space itself, linking distant void regions into a network no outsider could trace. They weren't just travel points, they were borders. Years passed, then decades. The galaxy forgot about us, or rather, they chose to. Until the first signal came back. A trading convoy, skirting the outer rim for rare minerals, reported something impossible. A star system that wasn't on any map, flickering into existence and then vanishing again. Their instruments went haywire. Their navigation systems reset. And then, they saw it. A gate. It hung in space like a scar in reality, humming with power beyond comprehension. Before they could scan it further, it activated. A fleet emerged, not hostile, not aggressive, but unmistakably human. The convoy tried to hail them. No response. Instead, a single transmission was broadcast across all frequencies. Simple, direct. This space is no longer accessible. And then the gate collapsed in on itself, taking the fleet with it. Panic spread quickly. Exploration ships were dispatched. Military scouts followed. None returned with anything useful. Some didn't return at all. The edges of known space had become unstable. Routes that once worked now led nowhere. Entire sectors seemed sealed. It wasn't just that humanity had left. We had locked the door behind us. The assembly convened in urgency. They argued, debated, accused. Had we discovered new weapons? New physics? Were we planning retaliation? But the truth was far more unsettling. We weren't coming back. As more reports surfaced, a pattern emerged. The outer rim was no longer a boundary. It was a wall. Invisible, impenetrable, and expanding. Every attempt to breach it resulted in failure. Drives malfunctioned, coordinates looped. Ships were turned around by forces they couldn't comprehend. Humanity had rewritten the rules of access, and we had chosen isolation. Then came the final message. Not to one species, not to a single government, but to the entire galaxy. It appeared simultaneously on every known network, every station, every ship. We were not cast out, it began. We were released. The message carried no anger, no bitterness, just certainty. You feared what we might become within your systems. You were right to be cautious. But your mistake was believing you could control the outcome. Images followed, brief glimpses of structures larger than moons, fleets that shimmered between dimensions, worlds built inside artificial stars, not weapons, not threats, just progress. We have no interest in conquest. No desire for revenge. You chose a galaxy without humanity. We have chosen a future without you. The signal paused as if giving them time to understand. The gates are closed. And then the final line. Do not attempt to open them. After that, nothing. No further contact, no incursions, no signs of aggression. Just silence. The galaxy returned to its routines, but something fundamental had changed. Trade routes near the rim were abandoned. Exploration slowed, expansion halted. There was a growing, unspoken fear, not of invasion, but of irrelevance. Because somewhere, beyond that invisible wall, humanity was still advancing, still building, still evolving, and no one knew how far we had already gone. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy had cast us out to preserve their dominance. Instead, they had created something beyond it, and now they could only watch the edge of the stars and wonder what we had become. At first, they told themselves it was temporary. Great powers have a way of believing every unknown can eventually be measured, mapped, and mastered. The Assembly funded new research divisions, task forces dedicated to the human problem, though no one dared call it that in official records. Quietly, they began studying the boundary, probing it with drones, signals, and expendable ships. Nothing passed through unchanged. Some drones returned twisted, their data scrambled into meaningless noise. Others came back with impossible readings, distances that contradicted themselves, timestamps that looped endlessly. A few transmitted a single frame before going dark, a glimpse of something vast, structured, watching, not guarding, not threatening, just aware. That unsettled them more than any weapon could. Centuries-old empires began to fracture under the weight of uncertainty. Expansion had always been their lifeblood, their proof of supremacy. But now a significant portion of the galaxy was simply unreachable. Worse, it wasn't empty. It was occupied by something they had exiled and no longer understood. The younger species reacted differently. Where the elders saw a sealed door, they saw a mystery. Independent explorers, fringe scientists, and rogue pilots became obsessed with the boundary. Stories spread, whispers of thin points where reality seemed weaker, where signals from beyond occasionally bled through. Fragments of human transmissions began to surface, not messages, not communications, just echoes, snippets of language, evolving beyond recognition. Mathematical constructs so complex they bordered on art. Star maps that showed regions of space folded in ways that defied known physics. Humanity wasn't just advancing, it was redefining existence. One such fragment changed everything. A deep space listening post intercepted a structured burst, clear, deliberate, and unmistakably human in origin. It wasn't addressed to the galaxy. It wasn't even encrypted. It was simply there, as if it had leaked through by accident. We have stabilized the outer lattice. The message repeated once, then vanished. No context, no explanation, but the implications rippled outward like a shockwave. If there was a lattice, then the gates weren't isolated constructs. They were part of something far larger. A framework. A system spanning distances no one could measure. The boundary wasn't just a wall. It was infrastructure. Fear gave way to something deeper. Realization. The Assembly had believed they controlled the narrative when they exiled humanity, that they had defined the limits of human influence. But now it was clear. The moment humanity left, it had stepped outside the rules entirely and rewritten them. Some began to ask a dangerous question. What if the gates weren't just closed, but locked from both sides? Because no matter how advanced humanity became, no matter how vast their new domain grew, they never crossed back. Not once, not even by accident. It was as if the boundary wasn't just a defense against the galaxy, but a containment against themselves. That idea spread slowly, quietly, like a crack forming in the foundation of certainty. If humanity feared nothing, why build a barrier so absolute? If they sought no conquest, why ensure no path remained open? The answers never came. But sometimes at the very edge of the rim, where sensors blurred and stars seemed to bend, ships reported a final, chilling detail. For just a fraction of a second, instruments would stabilize. And in that moment, beyond the unreachable dark, something immense would appear. Not a fleet, not a structure, but a pattern stretching across entire star systems, shifting, growing, alive in a way space itself should not be. Then it would be gone. And every time, without fail, the same faint signal would follow, barely detectable, almost like an afterthought. A single human phrase, unchanged despite everything. We are still here.